Yeah, so winning the Pulitzer, I have to say so far there's no downside. Yeah, it's pretty good work if you can get. It's such a strange experience. It's one of those experiences. It only becomes less likely the longer I live with it. Kind of, it just seems absurd. Because it took forever to write the book. It took forever to get it published. I literally, had it in a drawer for 5 years because nobody would publish it, and I had to have that kind of, long, dark, night of the soul, where I had to think, why do you make art? Because you're not making it to get published, and that was actually liberating. So because I spent 5 years just making art for art's sake, and once you are making art for art's sake, you don't trouble yourself with secondary and tertiary questions like, what are the editors like? What do the agents want? Who cares? It's just and then was very lucky to get published by the Bellevue Literary, what they called it. A not-for-profit boutique, press that exists at the philanthropic pleasure of the alumni and alumna of the NYU School of Medicine. Why didn't I think of that first? They gave me a $1,000 advance. Printed up 3,500 paperback copies, and we thought if we can sell those in 5 years, this will have been a great. My mother will buy 2,000 of them, and we thought it was great, and it came out, and it actually it was sort of ignored, and then it started getting reviews, and then it didn't sell, but it never stopped selling. It just kind of kept plugging along. We were sort of interested, and then with the Pulitzer. The Pulitzer is not like other book prizes. The Pulitzer is, largely journalism prizes. So unlike most book prizes, it's for publicity for the publishing industry and for the titles and for the authors. So they have the wicked long list, and then the long list, and then this pretty short list, and then so it's just like to keep just like sort of generating publicity. The Pulitzers, they just announce them. I found out that I had won the Pulitzer looking online. I was in Iowa teaching. I was in my crappy apartment all by myself, away from my wife and kids. My dirty laundry, wondering how did it come to this. And I was going to teach seminar. It was a Monday afternoon. I was going to go teach seminar. I was going to teach a class in Henry James, The Beast of the Jungle, which I recommend. And I knew that they were going to announce that they're going to post it online, the Pulitzer. So I said, well, I'll log on. I'll see who it is. That can be the first 10 minutes of class, because prize winning is a very, very partisan spectator sport. They announce the name, and half the people go, "That's the end of civilization," and the other people are like, "Yay, art's safe for another year." So you just it's just one of these weird things. And so I just remember I went onto their site a little bit early, and it was still the one that won the year before was Elizabeth Strout's Olive Kittredge. And so I just remember sitting there and just hitting return, just like, Elizabeth Strout, Tinkers. Looking like, I was like, where's the hidden camera? So my friends busting my butt. That really was, it was like the cartoon. It was just like, it was just suddenly what my life had been was just zooming away in the rear view mirror. Because just like sitting there and actually saying, your book just won the Pulitzer Prize. And I sort of slid off the couch. And they were lying. And then 90 seconds later, the phone rings, and it's the Associated Press, and I did my first interview. It was like, and it was insane. And Bellevue was not ready. Like, they didn't have the infrastructure to deal with it. So it was just all hands on deck. It was just bedlam, And so it just turns out, to get nominated for the Pulitzer Prize, your publisher just has to send 3 copies of the book and a check for $50 that doesn't bounce, and you're nominated. And then what they do is each year they choose 3 different judges for each category. Those 3 judges read 400 or 500 novels. From those 400 or 500 novels, they pick 3 finalists to forward to the real Pulitzer Prize committee, which is like 15 or 17 people, and they're mostly faculty members and journalists at Columbia University administers it. And by clear majority, those 17 or 15, whatever people, have to pick have to pick your. So it's like winning the lottery, because if it had been different judges, if the judge who liked it, had a bad sausage for breakfast, so you just realize that you're just, and so that's another that was another one of those moments that was just like, whoa, talk about having to aspire to levels of dignity, like humility, that you would never ever imagine, because there are two equally bad, terrible reactions to winning the Pulitzer. One of them is to act like you deserve it, and the other one is to act like you don't deserve it. Right? Because why would we give it to this idiot? Oh, geez. I wanted to win the Pulitzer. So you can't act. But at the same time, I could have hit return, and any number of dozens of other great novels that were published that year could have won the Pulitzer, and I would have been just like, that's great. So then I went to my seminar, and my students brought a case of champagne, and we just got drunk. It was fun. And Tinkers had been out something like the longest it could be. It came out January 1st, 2009. So it had been out something like 15 months, and I had been doing that kind of like do-it-yourself. I got a box of them in the trunk of my car. Any place that would let me read. But can I do a reading here? They're like, it's a gym. I don't know. And anytime anybody would come up after the reading and say, "Oh, my reading group is gonna," I said, "I'll come over to your house the night you read it." And I did. I drink Zinfandel and eat casseroles, and and so I've been doing that for 15 months, just hustling up work. And then after the book won the Pulitzer, I went on an 18-month book tour. It just around the world. I mean, I knew it was big, but oh boy, is it big. But then it was great because it had that narrative with it. It had that narrative of nobody published it, nobody, so I could kind of, the underdog, the victory lap. And then everybody got me for the second one. They're like, "Oh yeah, don't get too big for your britches." But but it's interesting because I'd spent many years as a drummer in a kind of third-rate touring rock band. So I'd been around the world, done lots of touring, done lots of press, and done lots of just kind of slogging around. So I knew how to be on the road. And I also it was my first novel, but I think I was 45 or something like that, a little younger. So it wasn't like, I think if I was 25 and had won the Pulitzer for my first novel, it might have blown my fuses. But this, I had just done enough, I'd been sort of knocked around enough so I could always kind of keep, my arms, keep it, just enough to, I'll be able to kind of look back and go, "Oh, isn't this funny that you're the protagonist of this?" And then what happens is a year later, somebody else wins it, and they take the tiara and the roses, and you're like, "Wait, where did everybody go?" And then my wife says, "Take out the trash." And I say, "But wait, I'm Pulitzer Prize winning